Genesis 40. At the end of 2 years' time, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, when out of the Nile there came up 7 cows, handsome and fat. They grazed in the marsh grass. But presently 7 other cows came up from the Nile close behind them, poor and most emaciated, and they stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. And the poor, emaciated cows devoured the 7 handsome, fat cows. Then Pharaoh awoke. He fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, solid and healthy, grew on a single stalk. But close behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, shriveled and thin and scorched by the east wind, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 solid and full ears. Then Pharaoh awoke. It was a dream. Next morning, he was troubled in spirit, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but none could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer spoke up and said to Pharaoh, "I must make mention today of my offenses." Once, Pharaoh was angry with his courtiers, and he put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the chief steward. We dreamed a dream in the same night, he and I, each of us a dream with its own meaning. A Hebrew youth, a slave of the chief steward, was with us there. When we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us, providing an interpretation for each according to his dream. And it turned out just as he had interpreted to us. I was restored to my post, and the other man was impaled. Pharaoh thereupon sent for Joseph, and he was rushed from the dungeon. He had his hair cut and changed his clothes, and he appeared before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. Now I have heard it said of you, that for you to hear a dream is to tell its meaning." Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, "Not I. God will see to Pharaoh's welfare." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream, I was standing on the banks of the Nile, when out of the Nile there came up 7 cows, fat and handsome, and they grazed in the marsh grass. But presently 7 other cows came up, emaciated, most emaciated anywhere in the land of Egypt, bad-looking and lean. I never saw the like in all the land of Egypt for ugliness. And the lean and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But when they had consumed them, one could not tell that they had consumed them, for they looked just as bad as before. Then I awoke. Also in my dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. But close behind them sprouted 7 ears, shriveled, thin, and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I told all this to the magicians, but none could tell me the meaning of it. Psalm 48, 1-8. Great is the Lord, and most worthy of praise, in the city of our God, his holy mountain, beautiful in its loftiness. The joy of the whole earth, like the heights of Zaphon, is Mount Zion, the city of the great King. God is in her citadels. He has shown himself to be her fortress. When the kings joined forces, when they advanced together, they saw her and were astounded. They fled in terror. Trembling seized them there, pain like that of a woman in labor. You destroyed them like ships of Tarshish, shattered by an east wind. As we have heard, so we have seen. In the city of the Lord Almighty, in the city of our God, God makes her secure forever. Within your temple, O God, we meditate on your unfailing love. Proverbs 17:10. A rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes a fool. Matthew 20:29-34. As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him, and 2 blind men sitting by the road, hearing that Jesus was passing by, cried out, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." The crowd sternly told them to be quiet, but they cried out all the more, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." And Jesus stopped and called them, and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said to him, "Lord, we want our eyes to be opened." Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes, and immediately they regained their sight and followed him. Mark 10:46-52. Then they came to Jericho. And as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a large crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the road. When he heard that it was Jesus the Nazarene, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many were sternly telling him to be quiet, but he kept crying out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him here." So they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take courage, stand up. He is calling for you." Throwing aside his cloak, he jumped up and came to Jesus. And answering him, Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man said to him, "Rabboni, I want to regain my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and began following him on the road. Luke 18:35-43. As Jesus was approaching Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the road begging. Now hearing a crowd going by, he began to inquire what this was. They told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by, and he called out saying, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Those who led the way were sternly telling him to be quiet, but he kept crying out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and commanded that he be brought to him. And when he came near, he questioned him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And he said, "Lord, I want to regain my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and began following him, glorifying God. And when all the people saw it, they gave praise to God.